Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful vision for a new kind of masculinity. It's drawn from the teachings of mystic Andrew Harvey, and it proposes a path away from some pretty destructive ideals towards something, well, more authentic and sacred.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. The source material kicks off by identifying what it calls a crisis. The whole idea here is that the dominant, media-sponsored images of what it means to be a man today are toxic. They celebrate this raw lust for power, and in doing so, they actively silence a more authentic, more protective masculine force. So, that really sets the stage, doesn't it? It frames this as a search for an alternative, what the source calls an authentic, sacred masculinity that's been almost entirely pushed aside. And it begs the question, if the mainstream model is broken, where in the world do we find a better one?
And for the author, Andrew Harvey, the very first and most powerful example of this alternative wasn't some distant mythical figure. Nope, it was someone incredibly close to him, his own father, who modeled his entire life on the teachings of Jesus.
Now, this personal code wasn't some complicated abstract philosophy. According to Harvey, his father basically distilled this whole way of being into three simple but really profound principles that they formed the absolute core of his life.
And here they are. These three ideas are the bedrock for this entire vision: dignity for everyone, unwavering integrity, and using your strength not to dominate, but to protect. And the key thing here is that these weren't just nice-sounding ideas. They were lived out every single day in his father's actions. I mean, check this out. There's this family story about his father, who is the head of police in India. He gets offered this massive bribe, golden cloth just stuffed with diamonds. He didn't just say no. He furiously threw the man and the bribe out, saying later he'd rather die in a ditch than accept a bribe. For him, honor was literally everything.
And this idea of power as profound care, wow, it was so deeply felt by the people who worked with him. When he went back to India years later, his former subordinates greeted him in tears. Why? Because, as they explained, he had taught them that real authority isn't about control, it's about humility and respect.
And his final lesson, it's maybe the most telling of all. On his deathbed, his father's blessing wasn't for comfort or success. It was for spiritual strength, what he called the presence of the Christ, that would be needed to face the hard work of healing a world in crisis. So you have this incredibly powerful personal example from his father, and it opens up into a much larger universal framework. The source material describes this framework not as some rigid set of rules, but like a diamond with 8 distinct, shining facets.
So what is the ultimate archetype here? Well, the source proposes that the figure of Jesus, when you look at him not just religiously but archetypically, provides a complete, multifaceted model for this new, sacred vision of what it truly means to be a man.
And here they are: the prophet, the hero, the warrior, the king, the lover, the healer, the servant, and the liberator. Now, the idea here is that these aren't just separate roles a man can play. No, they're interconnected facets that, together, form a complete and balanced picture of a sacred masculinity, a force that is powerful, just, and deeply, deeply transformative.
All right, I know this can all sound a bit abstract, so let's make it real. Let's zero in on 4 of these key facets to really see how they offer a radical alternative to our current ideals of manhood. First up, the prophet. Now, this is not the calm, detached sage, right? This is an archetype that's fueled by a passionate, holy outrage against injustice. It's the courage to speak truth to power, to literally overturn the tables, a kind of fierce, protective energy the source argues is desperately needed in our world today. Next up, the warrior. But, and this is a huge but, we're talking about a total redefinition of that word. This isn't about fighting external battles. That's seen as the easy part. The true sacred war is the inner one, that relentless battle against your own shadow, your own selfishness, your own ego, fought with compassion as the ultimate weapon. Then there's the lover archetype, and this is expressed in 2 really key ways. First, in a transformative, sacred relationship with the feminine, but just as importantly, it's also about a deep, transcendental love between men, a sacred brotherhood that directly challenges the competition and division that patriarchy just thrives on.
And fourth, we have the servant, which, man, this just completely flips our modern script on power. In this vision, true authority, true leadership, it doesn't come from a desire to rule.
It comes from a profound, humble, and really rigorous commitment to serve others. Now here's the crucial part. These facets, the prophet's fire, the warrior's inner discipline, the lover's connection, the servant's humility, they don't exist in isolation. They are meant to be integrated, to combine and forge something even more powerful.
And when they do, they all merge into this final, ultimate archetype, the Liberator. This is the sacred masculine in action. It's the synthesis of all the other facets, and it creates what's called a sacred activist, someone with the strength, wisdom, and tenacity to help build a new world out of the chaos of the old one.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway. This whole framework isn't presented as just some historical or religious idea. It's offered as a living, breathing vision for a new kind of masculinity that can be born today, right now, in response to the crises that we all face.
So we're going to leave you with this to think about. If this compassionate, protective, and courageous vision of manhood truly took hold, what would our world look like? What's the one thing you think would change first? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.